Is it recording? Well, hi there. Welcome to another chapter of Coffee with the Chairman. And we have indeed here a true chairman, Mr. Colin Beaton, past chair of the Canadian Business Council. Welcome, Colin.
It's a pleasure to be here, Shahram. Always a pleasure to help out the CBC.
Thank you so much. Well, it's good chatting with you. Let's get started and let's learn a little bit about you. How did you, well, tell us about, first of all, your work and what you do and who you are as far as practice.
Right. So I'm an architect by trade. I came here in 2004 to open up the office for a large design firm from Toronto. At the same time, I also opened up their office in Shanghai as well, too. So I was living in Toronto, and then I would fly from Toronto, Amsterdam, Dubai, and then Dubai, Shanghai, and then Shanghai, Vancouver, Toronto, and fly around the world from Toronto to Dubai to Shanghai and back to Toronto again. And so I did that for about 6 months, and eventually, their business in Dubai grew quite quickly. And so I simply relocated to Dubai to run the Dubai office and the Shanghai office, and leaving North America and Europe and South America to the Toronto office. So that was fun. That was 2004. I also have an MBA in marketing as well, too. And my business has always been on the retail hospitality side of the equation. And it's about, designing buildings to build brand experiences and, frankly, sell stuff. So I remember my parents could never figure out what I do. And I said to them, you go to the grocery store and you go in there to buy like 3 things, but you walk out like half an hour later, you bought like 9 things. You spent 3 times as much money as you thought you were going to spend. And you say to yourself, there must be some guy out there who figures out how and why I shop at a supermarket, and they figure out these little tricks on how to actually get me to buy more stuff than I think I'm going to buy. I'm that guy.
Oh gosh. Now we know. Now we know why that
bill
goes through the roof.
Yes.
I got it.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And so you've been out here since 2004, did you say?
That's right. Yeah, I came here in 2004. I started working here sort of part-time again through Toronto and Shanghai. And then I think 2005, mid-2005, about a year and a half later, I just simply had to pack up and sort of move to Dubai.
Okay. That's great. And then how did you find out about the Canadian Business Council, and how did you initially get involved?
Right. Well, at the time, I was very fortunate that I had our old friend Al Hinton from Toronto, who I had connected with through some connections in Toronto, and he was able to find me some financial support through the provincial Ontario government at that time, which provided a little bit of money to basically for travel expenses if you're an SME in Ontario trying to build this business abroad. So I kind of got Al to help me sort of navigate the paperwork process through that. And then I met him here for something or other. And then we just kind of and then of course he knew about the CBC. So he said, listen, you come to Dubai, you got to join the CBC, because that's, of course, is going to be your best sort of entry point into kind of like the Canadian network in Dubai. And if you want to quickly meet people, find out the lay of the land, get some insight, get some help, make some friends and some collaborators, the CBC is the first place to go. So that was pretty much the first thing I did when I came to Dubai.
Wow. So you've known Al Hinton for a long time. He's been around for a while.
Yeah, sadly.
Yeah. He's back in Canada now.
Terrific guy.
Yeah, he's a lovely guy. Great. Well, that's interesting. And so then he joined as a member, and what did you find when you joined? How was the CBC back then? And how was that?
Well, honestly, Shahram, it was pretty primitive. We were still in the old office back in Dubai. There was no, and of course, the whole digital communications thing was much less advanced technologically at the time. Yeah. So we had, not much of a website. There really wasn't any sort of social media or emails. It was kind of phone calls and a spreadsheet. The marketing and PR was pretty thin. The graphic, the logo was terrible. All the rest of that. So I came on and I joined the board because Dave McAdam had asked me to join the board sort of quite quickly after joining. And I took over PR and marketing because I figured that I could see that we needed to kind of rebrand and build a greater sense of value in sort of what we do, right? Trying to communicate that. and so that was my initial job, was going to like provide that sort of foundations of the graphics and the branding and the communications piece of it. So we looked like a credible organization, as opposed to a bunch of bits and pieces all kind of cobbled together, all kind of a little bit of a different look, right?
Yeah.
All the presentations and all the rest of that. So that's what initially how it did. But like again, it has evolved dramatically, like the last 3 to 4 years in particular on the digital side. But in 2005, it was it was pretty ragtag sort of organization. The good news is that time that the economy was booming. Nobody had any problem sort of spending the money to pay for membership. And membership was relatively easy. Sponsorship and membership was an easy sell, like, despite the fact that the organization wasn't very robust or sophisticated. But that changed quite quickly in 2009, 2010, when so that things got really tough. And then the sense of survival sort of kicked in, that kind of, okay, we have to make this a better organization that really says and does a lot more than what we had done in the past. And I think that happened in 09, 010, and then it happened again in 2020 to 2022. Same thing, that same big evolutionary jump, just to sort of, to kind of keep the ship afloat and keep going through tough times.
Gosh, you've been a member for a long time. So you've been on the board since when? Which year is that?
11, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. And of course, there was a year in between. So I've been on the board 3 times for the maximum. So I've been on board like 9 years with 2 in between. So it's been 12 years, I guess, in total, as of today, right? Yeah.
That is a long time. And we thank you for that. So, and then of course you became chairman. When did you become chairman?
First time was 15, I think. 014.
Okay.
015, I think. Yeah. And that was really, 015 times were good. It was before the big oil price crash that happened in like 15 and 16. So, I think that was a big learning curve for me as chairman, kind of all the nuts and bolts of details, but still it was steady as she goes, because we had members, we had sponsors, we had revenue, that was all good. So we hadn't seen real tough times yet. So it was a great year, had a lot of fun, a lot of events, attended a ton of events, and that was a great year.
Yeah. And then so you rolled through 2015, 16, and things went well, and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And you were chairman at that time, or?
No, I was chairman. I was director of marketing. I was chairman last year, sort of during Expo. But when COVID hit, that was I forget who was chairman at the time, but it wasn't me. I was I think I was vice chair at the time. Yeah.
And that must have been extremely difficult. I mean, you were just talking about it, but it must be an extremely difficult time.
That's right. Yeah. Ruda was chairman at the time. Yeah. And we were very fortunate, actually, that Ruda, because of his family-owned business situation, he was able to commit a lot of time to the organization. And we're very, very fortunate. Like, I couldn't have put in the amount of time because I'm busy trying to save my own business, right? And so he had the flexibility, and he poured in an immense amount of time in this CBC across that year. And I think, the reason that we have ended up in as good a position now as we are right now, in part, is because of, Ruda was able to just pour the hours in. And, the role of chairman is demanding, as you well know, right? And if you have a busy sort of work schedule and sort of family schedule, it's hard to find the hours to really lead the organization. But Ruda was there, he dug deep and provided a lot of help.
Excellent. And so you guys pulled through COVID. I know it was a difficult time, but we pulled through. And you were chairman. And you were chairman until, of course, last year. Is that right?
Yeah, during Expo. Yeah. And that was important to me because people don't know that 5, 6 years ago, the second time I was chairman, it was announced that Expo would be in Dubai, but Canada at that time had no plans to have a pavilion at Expo. And I spent a a lot of time that year focused on Expo,
Yeah.
working with the Consul General and Ambassador at the time, attending events, and my job was
Yep.
all of the delegates and the government officials that came through. My job was to show up and a Q&A at the end, ask them about Expo and make it a big deal. And I sent letters to everybody back, in Ottawa and so on, or whatever.
Wow.
And so I
Wow.
pushed it. And, I know that the Consul General and Ambassador, there's only so much that they can do in the limits. There's certain constraints about how much,
Yeah.
stuff like that. But I don't have any constraints. So I can ask anybody and do whatever I want, tell me whatever I want. So the second time I was chairman, it was really focused, really a lot of my time, because the organization was doing fine. But
Yeah.
Expo, it was so important to everybody. And I kind of took that on. And as an architect, I felt we got to be a part of this, right? You had to be a part of this. So that was a big deal for us. And of course, then the third time I was chairman, it was because then it was Expo, and I figured I played some very, very small role in getting the pavilion at Expo, and so I wanted to be there to see it happen and be a part of it. But of course, we know that COVID placed a lot of constraints operationally on what the pavilion could do, right? So we spent a lot of time there, had a lot of events there, but it wasn't I think what we had all hoped the pavilion would be, simply because of it just couldn't. I mean, the Expo regulations and COVID restrictions meant we could only do so much. So I think we utilized that pavilion the most we possibly could. But if there was no COVID, there would be a lot more events happening at the pavilion. But we all did the best we could.
Yeah, no, it turned out very well. You've certainly put into the CBC far more, and you've devoted so much time to it. So we really thank you for that. We're the beneficiaries of that sitting here in 2023. So thank you, Colin, officially on behalf of the CBC. So that's great. Thank you for that. Now, what about on a final note, talking about your personal hobbies and what you like? What is it that floats your boat? What is it that excites you personally? What kind of hobbies are you into?
Well, if this whole architectural thing doesn't work out, I would become a photographer, to be sure.
Oh wow! Wow.
So I'm an associate member of the Royal Photographic Society in London, which, according to them, is the most prestigious photographic sort of organization in the world. And I'm going to become the regional representative for the RPS, the Royal Photographic Society, for the Middle East here in the next sort of couple of months. So that is going to be my next big hobby. But of course, I don't have these things very far away from me. They're always kind of sort of very near and dear to my heart. So so photography. Now, of course, I'm talking to you from Riyadh right now, where I'm based now. And the arts and culture community here isn't as developed as it is in Dubai. Right. So I've been sort of networking, reaching out to various people at the government ministries and sort of private folks to try and sort of build a bit of a network to see what I can do here about trying to create some central organizational trade group, special interest group, maybe with the support of the Ministry of Culture, to try and sort of build photography up here, because it's just a part of the community here that isn't very particularly well developed. But I think the amount of people and the work here, and of course, so much of the photographic work here is done by Dubai photographers, because there's better skills, better equipment, better people. So they fly from Dubai, and of course, why couldn't we do that here with local sort of talent as well too? So if it wasn't architecture, it would be photography.
And are there specific things that you like photographing, or?
Well, in another world, I would have been a car race driver, but I know I just don't have the horsepower to do that. So motorsports, I mean, I was a real regular at the Autodrome, and I had media credentials, and I was always, on the accredited list of photographers for motorsports. Big into architecture, of course, and birds. I spent a lot of time at Al Qudra at 4:00 in the morning as the sun was coming up with my big telephoto lens, taking pictures of birds at Al Qudra. That was my Zen moment, communing with nature.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk. And it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you again for all your support. And we hope to see you very soon in Dubai.
Well, thanks, Shahram. All the best and good luck. I'm hearing sort of good things from everybody about the hard work that you're doing this year
Not
to
at all.
carry on and build on the hard work that we've all done the last couple of years. And I know you've got a lot of events going on, a lot of things happening. It's all looking positive, both in terms of membership, sponsorship, over a healthy organization. So carry on and give them hell.
Thank you. Thanks for your support.
Okay.
All the best.
Thanks, Shahram. Take care.
Take it easy.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.